There are seasons in life when a person grows tired in ways other people do not always notice. From the outside, everything may look ordinary, but inwardly there can be worry, disappointment, and the feeling of carrying too much for too long. If that has been true for you, then this message is meant to be received slowly, not as pressure, not as a dramatic promise, but as a quiet reminder that your life still matters, your faith still matters, and your story may not be as stuck as it once felt. Many people have gone through long nights asking for relief, clarity, or some sign that the struggle would not last forever. They have sat with questions they could not answer, and hoped that their prayers, however simple or broken, were still being heard. In Christian faith, that kind of waiting is often described as sacred, even when it feels painful. It does not always look strong from the outside. Sometimes it just looks like surviving one more day with a little bit of trust left in your heart. If you have been living in that kind of season, then perhaps what you need most right now is not more fear, more urgency, or more noise. Perhaps what you need is a steadier voice, a reminder that not every important change begins with something dramatic. Sometimes renewal starts quietly. Sometimes it begins with a breath that feels a little easier, a thought that feels a little clearer, or a burden that does not weigh on you quite the same way it did before. A lot of people of faith speak about moments when life begins to shift, not because every problem disappears overnight, but because something within them starts to settle. The chest feels lighter, the mind becomes less frantic, the future seems a little less closed off. That kind of inner change can matter more than it first appears. It may not be flashy, but it often marks the beginning of a healthier direction. You may have spent a long time feeling as though doors were closed, resources were limited, and peace was always just out of reach. That can affect more than your plans. It can affect the way you see yourself. It can make you question whether your efforts matter, whether your prayers matter, whether good things still belong in your future. But difficult seasons have a way of distorting perspective. They can make temporary heaviness feel permanent, even when it is not. Many believers take comfort in the idea that heaven does not overlook quiet endurance. The tears no one saw, the prayers no one heard, the courage it took to keep going when nothing seemed to be changing, all of that carries weight. In that sense, faith is not only about dramatic moments. It is also about the hidden strength to remain open to hope when disappointment would be easier. There is a kind of restoration that does not arrive as spectacle. It arrives as steadiness. It arrives as the return of sound judgment, renewed motivation, wiser boundaries, and the sense that life may still hold meaningful opportunities. Sometimes people are so used to living under strain that peace feels unfamiliar when it begins to appear. But unfamiliar does not mean false. It may simply mean you are entering a season your spirit has needed for a very long time. For some, the language of blessing can become too focused on sudden money, instant results, or supernatural claims that feel more intense than helpful. This message is not moving in that direction. It is gentler than that. It leaves room for faith without forcing certainty. It leaves room for hope without making grand promises. It recognizes that meaningful change can involve practical provision, yes, but also emotional healing, mental clarity, spiritual calm, and restored confidence. It may be that what is changing in your life right now is not just one area, but your whole way of carrying yourself through uncertainty. You may be learning to move with more peace and less panic. You may be learning to trust that not every delay means denial. You may be learning that some doors take time to open because the person walking through them must grow first. That kind of growth is rarely comfortable. It often comes through waiting, reflection, loss, and the painful work of letting go of expectations that no longer fit. Yet many people later look back and realize they were being shaped in ways they could not appreciate at the time. The season that felt empty may have been preparing discernment. The season that felt unfair may have been deepening compassion. The season that felt silent may have been teaching you how to hear more clearly. If you come from a Christian background, you may find comfort in images of divine protection and guidance. Many people think of Archangel Michael as a symbol of strength, courage, and spiritual safeguarding. Others reflect on the presence of Christ as a source of peace, mercy, and steady love. Whether those images speak to you in a literal or devotional way, they often remind believers that they are not abandoned in hardship. They remind them that fear does not have the final word. There are moments when a person senses, even before circumstances fully change, that a season is turning. It may come through stillness. It may come through a renewed willingness to plan again. It may come through a conversation that opens your thinking, a message that arrives at the right time, or an unexpected opportunity that helps you see possibilities where you once saw only dead ends. These things do not need to be exaggerated to be meaningful. Often, the most life-giving changes are the ones that unfold in honest, grounded ways. If you have been under financial strain, it is understandable to long for relief. Money troubles affect more than numbers. They affect sleep, relationships, self-worth, and the ability to imagine a stable future. Yet even here, it helps to speak carefully. Rather than promising a dramatic miracle, it may be wiser to say this: seasons do change, wise opportunities do appear, support can come through unexpected channels, and people often discover resources, ideas, or direction when they are calm enough to notice what panic would have hidden. In that way, faith does not replace practical life. It strengthens you within practical life. It can steady your thinking so you make clearer decisions. It can help you respond instead of react. It can keep bitterness from hardening your heart while you rebuild. It can remind you that survival is not the whole of your story. There may still be room for growth, repair, and genuine forward motion. What matters now is not whether every answer has arrived. What matters is whether you are beginning to recognize that you do not need to live forever in the same atmosphere of fear. You do not need to let yesterday's disappointment define tomorrow's possibilities. The part of you that has been exhausted may finally be ready for a different rhythm, one marked less by striving and more by grounded trust. Some people describe this shift as moving from constant tension into alignment. That does not mean every road becomes easy. It means your choices become clearer, your mind becomes steadier, and your energy is not drained by the same chaos it once tolerated. You start to recognize what is truly for you and what only kept you distracted. You become less impressed by urgency and more attentive to peace. There is wisdom in that kind of peace. Peace can act like a guide. It can show you which conversations deserve your attention and which ones do not. It can help you notice which opportunities feel healthy and sustainable and which ones are driven by pressure alone. When people talk about divine guidance, sometimes this is what they mean in practice. Not a loud interruption from the sky, but a deepening clarity that helps you walk with greater maturity. If your spirit has felt worn down lately, then maybe the most important thing to hear is this. You are allowed to hope without forcing a performance. You do not need to prove your faith through anxiety. You do not need to react out of fear that something good will vanish. If you are not intense enough, quick enough, or emotional enough. Real faith is not panic in religious language. It is the quiet decision to remain open to grace, even when you do not control the timeline. There is also no need to pretend that hardship has not affected you. It likely has. Maybe it has changed how quickly you trust, how boldly you plan, or how easily you rest. Maybe it has made you cautious, tired, or guarded. That is human. But there is a difference between being affected and being defined. The pain may have shaped part of your experience, yet it does not own your future. A healthier spiritual message leaves room for both honesty and hope. It says, yes, you have been through a lot. Yes, some days have felt heavier than others. Yes, it may have seemed as though peace, provision, and progress were always somewhere beyond reach. But it also says that life can shift. People do recover. Doors do open. Minds do heal. Direction does return. Not always in the way imagined, but often in ways that prove gentler and more sustainable. You may already be noticing the beginning of that. Maybe the signs are subtle. Maybe you are thinking more clearly than you were a month ago. Maybe your heart is less drawn to despair. Maybe a practical idea has started taking shape. Maybe a strained relationship is softening. Maybe you are finally able to say no to what keeps draining you. These are not small things. They can be part of real restoration. In Christian reflection, restoration is not only about receiving something external, it is also about being rebuilt inwardly. It is the healing of perspective. It is the return of courage. It is the renewal of dignity after a season that made you feel reduced to survival. It is the rediscovery of purpose after months or years of simply trying to hold things together. And when that inward restoration begins, it often changes how you handle every outward challenge that follows. There may have been a time when you believed that if your situation did not change quickly, then nothing good could come from it. But life tends to be more layered than that. Some of the people who carry the deepest wisdom are not the ones who avoided hardship. They are the ones who walked through it and came out gentler, clearer, and more grounded than before. Their confidence is quieter. Their faith is steadier. Their decisions are less driven by fear. That may be what is developing in you now. A quieter confidence, a steadier heart, a willingness to move at a healthier pace, an ability to notice what is worth pursuing and what is only noise. These shifts may not make headlines, but they can change the whole direction of a person's life. If financial improvement comes, let it be received with gratitude and wisdom, not with the pressure of exaggerated claims. Relief is meaningful. Stability is meaningful. A new stream of work, a timely connection, a needed answer, an open conversation, or a practical opportunity can all matter deeply. But even then, the deeper gift may be the peace that returns with it, the feeling that you can finally breathe and think and plan again, without carrying the same level of dread. That is why it helps to speak of breakthrough in a balanced way. A breakthrough may not always be one enormous event. Sometimes it is a sequence of aligned moments, a clearer mind, a helpful person, a wise decision, a needed opening, a renewed capacity to keep showing up with faithfulness. Over time, these things build a life that feels less chaotic and more whole, and wholeness matters. So many people have been taught to chase intensity while ignoring peace. They have been taught to look for dramatic moments while overlooking the slow, honest work of becoming stronger in character, wiser in choices, and more stable in spirit. Yet those quieter changes are often the ones that last. They are the ones that help a person hold success without being consumed by it, and endure waiting without collapsing under it. You may be standing at the edge of that kind of season now, not a season defined by spectacle, but one shaped by deeper trust. Not a season of pretending that everything is perfect, but one in which the future no longer feels permanently closed. A season where your heart is learning that it does not need to brace for disappointment every moment of the day. If so, then let yourself receive that shift gently. Do not rush to explain every feeling. Do not force every answer. There is wisdom in simply noticing what is softening, what is clearing, and what is returning to life within you. Sometimes peace itself becomes the proof that healing is underway. For people of faith, peace often carries a special meaning. It is not the absence of all trouble. It is the presence of steadiness in the middle of uncertainty. It is the ability to keep moving without being ruled by fear. It is the confidence that your life is held by something greater than the problem directly in front of you. That kind of peace can strengthen the way you work, speak, love, and decide. There may also be things leaving your life right now that no longer belong in the chapter ahead. Old assumptions, unhelpful patterns, relationships that survive on confusion, habits of panic, ways of thinking that kept you small. Though that kind of release can feel uncomfortable, it often clears room for something healthier. What leaves is not always a loss. Sometimes it is a preparation. The next chapter of your life may ask for a different version of you, one less reactive, one more grounded, one more willing to trust without becoming passive, one more ready to handle responsibility with calm. And if that is true, then perhaps everything you have learned in the difficult season is not being wasted. Perhaps it is becoming part of the wisdom you will carry into better days. There is no need to frame that process in extreme language. It is enough to say that something meaningful may be taking shape. What once felt impossible may now be becoming thinkable. What once felt out of reach may now be moving closer through ordinary but timely circumstances. What once felt blocked on all sides may now be opening one step at a time. Many people miss this because they expect change to arrive with noise, but often change comes quietly. It comes in the return of discipline, in the recovery of motivation, in the willingness to believe that stability is still possible, in the grace to stop measuring every day by fear, in the maturity to recognize that not everything immediate is good and not everything delayed is bad. If you have been living with too much internal pressure, then perhaps this is the time to loosen your grip. You do not have to control everything for life to improve. You do not have to carry every outcome on your shoulders. You do not have to force your way into peace. Sometimes growth begins when a person stops fighting everything and starts listening more carefully to what is true, healthy, and necessary. That may include accepting support. It may include asking for help. It may include facing practical issues with honesty rather than shame. It may include allowing yourself to receive encouragement without suspecting that it will disappear. It may include learning that being cared for does not make you weak. It makes you human. A lot of people have spent so long in survival mode that receiving anything good feels uncomfortable. They expect loss before joy. They expect disappointment before relief. They expect the door to close before it fully opens. If that has been your pattern, then healing may include learning how to stay present when something good begins. It may include resisting the urge to talk yourself out of hope the moment it appears. This matters because the future is not built only by circumstances. It is also shaped by the condition of the heart that meets those circumstances. A fearful heart can miss an opening. A bitter heart can resist help. An exhausted heart can mistake peace for emptiness. But a heart that is slowly being restored can begin to recognize what is healthy and receive it with humility. That is one reason spiritual renewal and practical renewal often go together. When your inner life becomes steadier, your outward life often becomes more manageable as well. You think differently. You choose differently. You notice differently. You stop spending all your strength on chaos, and you begin investing it in what actually supports life. Maybe that is part of what this moment is about for you. Not a promise of instant transformation, but an invitation to step into a more stable pattern, a more honest faith, a more peaceful way of moving through the world, a more mature understanding of blessing, one that includes gratitude, responsibility, patience, and the courage to begin again without pretending the past never hurt. And yes, beginning again matters. There is no rule that says a person only gets one chance to rebuild. There is no rule that says a season of difficulty must define every season after it. People do heal. People do recover. People do find new direction after periods of confusion. People do learn how to carry peace in places where they once carried fear. That is not sentimentality. It is something many have lived. They have learned that hope can return in ordinary ways, through consistency, through faithfulness, through conversations that bring clarity, through work that slowly becomes fruitful, through rest that finally allows the mind to settle, through prayer that does not always change everything at once, but changes the person enough to move differently. If you have felt that your life has been paused, perhaps what is really happening is that you are being invited into a slower, wiser kind of motion, a motion built on truth rather than panic, a motion built on peace rather than pressure, a motion built on discernment rather than desperation. That kind of movement may not look impressive to everyone else, but it often leads further than frantic striving ever could. So take this message as a reminder that your future does not have to be built from fear. It can be built from steadiness. It can be built from values that last. It can be built from the quiet conviction that your life is still capable of bearing good fruit even after a difficult season. You do not need to prove that overnight. You only need to stay open to the next right step. The next right step may be practical. It may be a conversation, a decision, a habit, a plan, a moment of honesty, or a needed pause. It may be the courage to leave behind what no longer fits your healing. It may be the willingness to trust that a smaller, healthier path is better than a dramatic but unstable one. However it appears, let it be enough. Not every meaningful change needs to begin with a grand sign. And as you keep moving, notice whether your spirit feels less crowded by fear. Notice whether your thoughts are becoming easier to order. Notice whether gratitude is returning in simple ways. These things matter. They may tell you that your life is slowly coming back into balance. For those who pray, perhaps this is a good time to ask not only for outcomes, but for wisdom. Not only for open doors, but for the maturity to walk through the right ones. Not only for relief, but for clarity, patience, and the kind of peace that holds steady, even when the path is still unfolding. Those are gifts worth asking for, because they shape the whole person, not just the moment. And if support comes, receive it well. If an opportunity appears, weigh it with discernment. If peace returns, do not mistrust it simply because it feels unfamiliar. If direction becomes clearer, honor it. If healing begins quietly, let it continue without demanding that it turn into a dramatic display. Real growth often prefers depth over spectacle. There is a version of you that already knows this. A version made stronger by waiting, made wiser by disappointment, made gentler by pain, and made more attentive by time. That version of you does not need to rush. It does not need to force meaning into every moment. It knows that what is true can unfold without panic. So if your heart has been asking whether better days are still possible, let this be a careful answer. Yes, they may be. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, and not because every struggle disappears at once, but because peace can return, direction can become clear, and change can begin in ways that are quiet, grounded, and real. That is enough to build on. You do not have to stand in fear of missing what is meant for you. You do not have to live as though grace is fragile and always one step from leaving. What matters is living with openness, wisdom, and faithfulness. What matters is becoming the kind of person who can recognize what is good and receive it without panic. That alone can transform the atmosphere around your life. The chapter ahead may still require patience, but it does not have to be ruled by dread. It may still include work, but it does not have to be driven by despair. It may still include uncertainty, but it does not have to strip you of peace. And if that peace is beginning to return even now, receive it. Let it settle your thoughts. Let it calm your breathing. Let it remind you that not everything is against you. Sometimes the truest sign of change is not intensity. It is rest. It is clarity. It is the feeling that your soul no longer needs to fight for every inch of ground. It is the awareness that what once consumed you has less power than it used to. It is the quiet realization that you may be stronger than you thought, more guided than you realized, and more capable of beginning again than you once believed. As this message comes to a close, hold on to what is steady. Let go of what is exaggerated. Keep what helps you breathe, think, and move with wisdom. Release what only stirs fear. Your life does not need louder pressure. It needs truthful encouragement. It needs space to heal. It needs room for hope to grow in honest soil. So walk forward at a healthy pace. Stay grounded. Stay prayerful if that is your practice. Stay open to wise opportunities. Stay willing to receive peace where panic once lived. Let your faith become something that steadies you rather than something that frightens you into reaction. Let this chapter be marked by clarity, maturity, and a quieter kind of confidence. And if you sense that something within you is softening, strengthening, or beginning to trust again, do not dismiss that. It may be the beginning of a very real turning point, not a dramatic spectacle, not an empty promise, but a meaningful shift toward greater wholeness. Sometimes that is how a new season truly begins, with a calmer heart, a clearer mind, and the quiet conviction that life can move forward in a better way than before.